3 spine-chilling Christmas nightmares. Terrifying tales of sinister secrets revealed Volume 2. It was the night before Christmas in Maplewood, and shadows danced against the flickering lights adorning the Johnson family home. The air, once warm with holiday cheer, felt eerily still, as if the world held its breath in anticipation of something sinister. 12-year-old Lily beamed as she helped her parents, Mark and Sarah, hang the final ornament. Laughter ricocheted off the walls, but outside, the serene suburban setting turned uneasy under a veil of darkness, amplified by the disappearance of Mrs. Croft, their cheerful neighbor and beloved teacher. "I heard she went on a break for the holidays," Sarah said, her voice wavering slightly. It was a flimsy excuse that left doubt lingering like a haunting ghost. The whisper of rumors caught in the corners of Lily's mind, dark truths about Mrs. Croft from her friend Clara, bubbled to the surface, igniting fear in her heart. Words like hidden secrets and watchful eyes haunted her. As they prepared for the festive dinner, strange occurrences began to disturb the cozy ambience. The porch light flickered violently until it settled into a strobe-like rhythm. Shadows morphed into monstrous shapes, clawing at the edges of their reality, while thumping sounds reverberated ominously from the basement. Each heartbeat of the house resonated with dread, intensifying the world's familiar cheer into a sinister melody. Lily's fingers trembled over her phone, recalling Clara's warning. What if the tales about Mrs. Croft weren't mere rumors? The kids talked in hushed tones at school, murmurs about a chilling tradition in Maplewood, where a child vanished each year among the ribbons and lights. "It's just a myth," Lily told herself, but the weight of it wrapped around her mind, constricting her thoughts like a vice. Mark rubbed the back of his neck. He dismissed her concerns, his protective nature bristling. They should focus on the dinner. Yet, with each flickering light and unsettling sound, tension mounted. "I swear I heard her voice," Lily insisted, but her father's stern look stifled her words. "Let us not make this more than it is, Lily." Then, the clock struck 10, a slow and dreadful chime, as darkness shrouded their once familiar street. The comforting glow of lights became ominous under the growing weight of silence. Suddenly, a chilling text from Clara pinged on Lily's phone again. "I found something outside Mrs. Croft's house. Whatever you find, don't talk to anyone." The words gripped her heart, plunging it into dread. Why was Clara so scared? What had she discovered? Before they could process this sudden fear in their midst, a piercing scream shattered the night. It echoed through Maplewood, a raw sound of panic that resonated deep within their souls. Lily's blood ran cold, her breath caught in her throat. What happened to Mrs. Croft? Had the urban legends come to life? It dawned on them then the real monsters might be those they trusted the most, and perhaps right beneath their feet, just beyond the basement door. Lily's heart raced as a new determination surged through her. They needed to confront this nightmare, whatever it was lurking in the dark, or risk being consumed by the sinister web that threatened to shatter their holiday into terror. Lily's heart thundered in her chest as she hovered near the basement door, the wood warped and heavy, holding an abyss of unknown horrors behind it. The scream still echoed in her ears, a horrifying reminder of the urgency pressing against her. She glanced up at her parents, who stood frozen, shadows of unease tightening their expressions. "Mom, Dad, we have to check the basement," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper, yet thick with fear. Mark's brow furrowed, and he hesitated, wrestling with the instinct to protect versus the overwhelming need to unravel what lay hidden. "It's just the wind. It's old pipes," he muttered, attempting to shake off the chill crawling up his spine. But Sarah's eyes were wide, troubled and searching, her motherly instincts tuned to every whispered danger. "No, something is wrong. We need to go down there," she finally said, her voice stronger than Mark's, a thread of urgency woven throughout. Just as she spoke, another thump echoed from beneath them, louder this time. It reverberated into the floor, rumbling through their bodies. A jolt of adrenaline surged through Lily. "Please," she begged, feeling as if her voice could pierce the dread thickening the air. They exchanged another look, and Mark sighed, resigning to the panic that enveloped them. "Fine," he grumbled, gripping the doorknob tightly. The metallic chill of the handle ran through his palm as he turned it slowly, the creaking would sounding like the moans of something long forgotten. Light from the hallway peeled back the darkness at first, illusionary flames flickering over the stairs. Mark led the way, his flashlight beam cutting through lingering shadows, but as they descended, the light seemed to be swallowed whole, shrinking in intensity. Lily followed, heart racing, feeling the stairs pulse beneath her feet, as if something waited below, barely contained. When they reached the bottom, the basement was colder than she'd ever felt. A thick shroud of darkness blanketed the space, swallowing the light like a hungry beast. Items once scattered carelessly around the room now loomed like specters with hidden intent. Old boxes, forgotten toys, and the smell of damp earth filled her senses, but the source of their dread was hidden just beyond their reach. "What are we looking for?" Mark's voice cracked, echoing ominously in the confined space. Finding strength in sheer willpower, Lily tightened her grip on her phone's flashlight, illuminating dusty corners. Then, out of the gloom, she spotted something glittering beneath an old table draped in an outdated tablecloth. "Over there," she pointed, skin prickling with both fear and a surge of reckless curiosity. Mark moved cautiously but resolutely toward the table, but before he could fully grasp what lay beyond the cloth, a soft, mournful whisper cut through the silence, sending icy tendrils up their spines. "Help me!" All three froze. Sarah gasped, stepping back lightly while Marcus' face drained of color as the voice licked at their sanity, weaving through their thoughts like a poisonous vine. Then the lights flickered violently as the basement plunged deeper into darkness, plunging them into panic. The atmosphere thickened, and as Lily's heart raced, she felt an inexplicable pull towards the source of the voice, as if it were without a doubt connected to Mrs. Croft. "Lily, no!" Mark exclaimed, but the grip of curiosity was stronger than fear. She took a step forward, being pulled closer and closer to the cursed relic of the basement hidden under the table. Then the whisper turned frantic, an echo of desperation merging into a shriek that mirrored the lost screams of the past. "You must find the truth before it finds you, or it will take what's yours." As the lights flickered out completely, plunging them into utter blackness, a chilling realization washed over them. Whatever had plagued Maplewood for years was here, lurking just beyond their sight. "They're coming." Sarah's voice trembled as panic surged in the suffocating dark. What would emerge from the depths of that basement? What shadows came, alive when the lights died? Lily knew one thing for certain: they were not alone. And the darkness had a secret of its own. Shadows curled menacingly around them, thick and suffocating. In the suffocating dark, only the sound of their breathing broke the silence, heavy and anxious. Lily's heart raced, hammering against her chest like a trapped bird battling against its cage. "Stay close," Mark whispered, forcing his voice to stay steady. Panic drummed in Lily's ears, but she felt the weight of their terror. Together they were powerless, but alone? A shiver rippled through her as a cold draft brushed past, rekindling the sensation of being watched, tugged at her like fingers of ice. The voice, the plea for help, clung to the air like a heavy fog. "Did you hear that?" Sarah's voice trembled, each syllable wavering. "We should go." "No." Lily felt anger flare inside her, fueled by dread. "What if someone's down here? We can't leave." She turned to the table, her gaze drawn to the glimmer that caught the edge of her flashlight. Her pulse quickened. Just a little closer. Mark moved fast, gripping her wrist firmly. "We can't take that chance." But that voice, filled with desperation, echoed back in her mind. "You must find the truth." The air grew heavy around them as the darkness thickened. A sudden rattle erupted from behind the old boxes, and Mark jumped, yanking Lily back. Sarah stifled a scream, eyes wide and glistening with fear. The uncertainty roared, poised between love and horror. "Maybe we should leave." Mark's breath hitched. Sarah nodded emphatically, eyes darting, searching the shadows. The tension was electric. Suddenly, the whisper returned louder, shriller, frayed with panic. "Help me. You must. Before it wakes." Lily's instincts surged. What if it's real? What if we could help? She stepped forward, shaking off Mark's grip. The words clawed at her, pulling her down into the depths of the unknown. Don't, he yelled, but the darkness stretched and swallowed her words, trapping them all beneath its weight. Then, as if on cue, the very air shuddered the sound of something dragging across the floor, scraping, clawing, searching. It echoed off the damp walls, a horrible symphony that throbbed painfully between them. They clutched at each other, a tight-knit lifeline in the storm of dread. Another thump underscored the sound, and Lily stumbled backward, wide eyes searching, the beam from her phone flickering wildly. What is that? Her breath hitched, escalating into a rapid spiral of panic. Maybe it's just Mark hesitated, then cut off as the whisper grew louder, coiling around them like a noose. You have to go. It's trying to warn us, Sarah gasped, stepping back, her voice trembling with fear. We don't know what's down here. The glimmer beneath the table trembled in her light, shifting like a living thing, as if it wanted to crawl toward them. The air vibrated with a simmering tension, a silent scream building to a crescendo, and that whisper deepened, forming sinister shapes in the shadows. Then a surge of movement. From the corner of the basement, something slithered blacker than night, a churning mass of despair pulled from the very depths of their fears. It edged closer, under the table, toward the one glimmering object in sight. No, no, no. Let us go now. Mark's voice tore through the chaos, electrified with desperation. But it was too late. Lily felt it reach for her, an icy grip seizing her ankle, pulling her toward the abyss of darkness behind the table. A breathless scream escaped her lips as Mark lunged forward but was caught by an unseen force. The basement erupted into chaos. Shadows twisted and turned, voices wove together in a cacophony of despair. What's happening? Sarah cried, fear weaving through her voice. Lily's veins coursed with adrenaline. We need to understand. We need to find out what it wants. But the grotesque silhouettes morphed closer, tendrils of darkness wrapping around them, ensnaring them in a web of fear. The shadows whispered their secrets, caressing their skin with cold fingertips. As the darkness swelled, swelling with screams of the lost, an urgency gripped her heart. They were siphoning her memories, and for a fleeting moment, a vision ignited in her mind, a boy, crying, trapped in shadows, eyes wide and pleading. And then it struck her like lightning. Mrs. Croft was not the key. The boy was. Mark, the boy. She yelled, urgency burning in her gut. We need to find out what he knows. But as she spoke, dread rolled through her. The basement door slammed shut, sealing them in with the tide of shadows, the otherworldly whispers rising to a pitch, threatening to drown them in a scream of terror. Would they uncover the truth about the boy before it swallowed them whole? Or would they become the next echoes of despair in the haunting darkness? Lily's pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out the chaos around her. Shadows writhed like they had minds of their own, slashing through the frigid air. She gripped Mark's arm, desperation clawing at her throat. The boy's face flashed in her mind, a beacon in the overwhelming dark. We can't give up, she cried, her voice barely a whisper, nearly swallowed by a wave of whispers that felt like hands clawing at her sanity. Lily, Mark shouted, panic amplifying with every syllable. We need to get out. But each word he spoke seemed to thicken the darkness. It coiled tighter, wrapping around their bodies like a serpent ready to strike. She could feel the weight of something lurking in the shadows, something alive, something that hungered. Shut up, Sarah hissed, shuddering as the floor creaked ominously. Can't you hear it? A screech echoed from the depths, a gut-wrenching sound full of anguish. Lily's heart plummeted. There was no mere creature here. It was a nightmare given birth, a chaotic disturbance in the fabric of their reality. The shadows danced and twisted, pulling the voices closer, spiraling into an unholy symphony. In the corner of her eye, a flicker of movement caught her attention, a childlike silhouette of pure despair, eyes wide and glistening. Help me, came the small voice, breaking through the chaos, dripping with urgency. Before it wakes, Lily felt a chill settle in her bones as the words resonated within her. We have to find him, she yelled again, fighting against the oppressive darkness that threatened to steal her will. He has the key. Mark pulled at her, terror etched across his face. You don't know what you're asking. No, Lily countered. This isn't just about us anymore. Before she could take another step, the shadows erupted. They swirled violently, a funnel pulling at the edges of their reality. The walls trembled, the very air thickening as the darkness roared, swept up in their desperation. Lily, Mark's voice cracked. We have to go. Now. She blocked out his tense pleas, feeling the pull of the boy's voice drawing her in. The world around them blurred. Clutching the flashlight, she aimed it toward the murky depths where the boy had appeared. I see you, she shouted, almost losing herself in the cacophony. I'm coming, the shadows shrieked, furious at her defiance. As she took a step forward, Lily was met with a resistance, a thrumming energy that pushed back, cold and bitter. It forced her to stagger, the beam of her flashlight wavering, trembling in the teeth of the darkness. With every heartbeat, she felt the shadows writhing in frustration, the whispers now clashing against each other, incoherent and frantic. Foolish, they mocked, a chorus of derision echoing from the walls, laughing at their futile struggle. Suddenly, a glimpse flashed before her eyes, a glimpse of warmth amidst the shadows. The boy, trembling, his small hand reaching toward her. Help! He cried again, but the sound twisted, tore apart, fragmenting into a chilling laughter that reverberated through the basement, threatening to tear her apart. Don't let go, Mark begged, his grip tightening as fear flooded his voice. Just as she thought she might lose her resolve, another glimmer caught her eye, something reflecting her flashlight, beckoning her. Over there. We have to go. But as she moved closer, a wall of shadow crashed down, blocking her path. The temperature plummeted, and a deep growl emanated from the abyss. You seek the boy? But can you pay the price? Lily trembled, the shadows swirling around them forming grotesque faces, writhing in torment, eyes looming large within the darkness. This was no mere game. Then she understood. The price, not just gasping breaths of terror, not just her sanity but memories. Don't! Sarah cried in realization as Lily felt something tear away from her. An echo of laughter echoed around them, darker than the night itself, and suddenly, memories began to drift, like ashes in the wind, swirling into the gaping maw of shadow. Lily! Mark gripped her tighter, but she could feel herself slipping, drawn closer to the boy's desperate call. Get the boy! Now! She shouted, panic and conviction surging through her. But chaos consumed her words as the darkness reached, grasping for the remnants of their souls. And then silence. What remained were shadows, heavy and thick, and the boy's voice, now a distant plea. Surrounded by a vacuum of dread, they were left teetering on the edge between hope and utter despair. Could they grasp the boy's essence from the depths of the haunting past, or had they already lost too much? The next wave of darkness approached them, and Lily's heart raced as she braced for what was to come. Would they become just another echo in a long, lost nightmare? Or could they finally conquer the shadows that threatened to consume them? The silence pressed down on them like a heavy shroud. Each breath felt like a rebellion against the encroaching dread. Shadows twisted at the edges of their vision, hissing in a language they couldn't understand, filling the air with a thick perfume of malice and regret. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown, and with each pulse, Lily felt as if a part of her essence slipped further from her grasp. Lily! We can't stay here, Mark pleaded, his voice shaking, a raw edge betraying the fear tightening his throat. I have to find him, she whispered back, locking her eyes on the void where the boy's fleeting image had flickered. The shadows around them convulsed, angry and disoriented by her determination. Listen, you don't know what these things will take. Sarah's voice trembled. What they want from us, but she couldn't back down now. We're out of time. The air had shifted, an electric tension crackling around them. The whispers had transformed from mocking laughter to something spooling tightly, a threat held just below the surface. Something in the darkness stirred, recognizing the moment their fear tethered them to the fate it had waited for. Then, out of the murk, the boy reappeared, his fragile silhouette darting between dimensions. "Help me before it wakes," he cried, desperation flooding through the words, pulling at something primal within Lily. A pulse of raw energy surged from the shadows, and in a heartbeat, the ground beneath them shuddered, splintering. "The price," a voice now growled, deeper, more haunting. "You'll give everything or risk losing it all." As if confirming its words, torrents of darkness lunged toward them, tendrils reaching like claws. Lily felt the cold pierce her skin, latching onto the memories that had lingered too long, waiting for this very moment. "No," she gasped, clutching her head in both hands, her mind swimming with images that weren't just hers, but of loved ones lost, warmth and laughter bleeding into despair, snatched away. It felt like a curse, a glimmer of light stolen, the fragile joy shattered. "Fight it," Mark shouted, his voice breaking through. But how could she fight memories? All that she had, everything she held dear, was entwined with this darkness. Sarah shuddered, leaning against the wall, eyes wide and glassy. "It's taking us, don't let it take you," she cried, though her own voice faltered under the weight of terror. Lily turned back to the boy, desperately focusing on his terrified face, solid amidst the chaos. "We are coming," she screamed, rallying her heart to combat the chill. "Hold on." But shadows hissed, pouring into the small breaches of hope. Each remembrance they dragged forth added to their weight, an unholy currency she never meant to spend. A single tear dropped from her eye, a drop that felt like a pact, pulling at her very core. "No, I won't let you have them." With every ounce of her being, she lunged ahead, breaking through the barrier of darkness, the flashlight beam slicing through like a sword, catching the ghastly forms that wriggled as she advanced. The boy's shadow flickered again, coy and maddening. "Help me," his plea reverberated like a song trapped in the abyss. Just as Lily felt she could reach him, the shadows recoiled, revealing a monstrous visage, an amalgamation of every fear they ever harbored, eyes wide and hollow, gnashing teeth sharpened into serrated chaos. "Your memories belong to me," it roared, echoing with a cacophony of their own voices, shrieking in pain and agony. "Run!" Mark screamed, yanking on Lily's arm as reality trembled around them. The moment stretched impossibly, caught between the boy's outstretched hand and the monstrous maw of darkness. Was this the end? How could she turn away? Heart pounding, adrenaline surging, she couldn't choose. But the boy's eyes held desperation, a spark of hope that blossomed even in the shadows. "Let us go," Mark shouted, retreating as the world around them buckled. Lily hesitated, torn between salvation and the pull of the unknown. Would they lose themselves if they turned their back? The darkness roared, hungry for their retreat, and Lily felt a frisson of icy fear clawing down her spine. And in that moment she made her choice. With a resolute cry, she dashed forward, reaching for the boy, only to feel the sinuous grasp of shadow lap at her heels. The air screamed with tension as everything teetered on the brink. Would the boy's hand bridge the gap, or were they destined to fall into oblivion together? As the darkness lunged, the last flicker of light shattered, plunging them into an abyss where reality twisted, binding fate and fear tighter than ever before. What would emerge? Would they obtain the boy or become ghosts of their own making? The truth lay just beyond the edge of the endless void, waiting to be uncovered. Lily felt herself being pulled in two directions, caught in a coil of shadows that thickened menacingly, dragging her deeper into their icy embrace. Her heart hammered wildly in her chest, a frantic drumbeat drowning out everything else. The boy was slipping away, his terrified face a fleeting apparition as the darkness clawed at her. Suddenly, a blaze of light ignited not the comforting glow of her flashlight, but an eerie, blinding luminescence that blossomed from the core of the abyss. It twisted upward in grotesque patterns, becoming a vortex of shimmering terror. Light clashed with dark, filling the space with a deafening roar. The shadows writhed and screamed, their forms melting away like vapor in the heat. "Lily, we have to go now." Mark's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and insistent. He reached for her, tugging desperately, but Lily felt anchored by something deeper than fear and unyielding instinct to save the boy. "Help me, it's coming." The boy cried again, his eyes wide with dread, mirroring the encroaching horror. She could almost feel his fragile hope fading as the shadows coiled tighter around him. "No!" Lily shrieked, trying to pierce the heavy veil of despair suffocating her. She reached out, straining against the pull of fear gripping her own heart. But the darkness lunged forward, blackened fingers racing to engulf her. Clawing at her ankles, they froze her in place, a paralyzing terror wrapping around her limbs like iron bands. Sarah screamed, her voice barely breaking the cacophony of whispers and wails that filled the air. "Lily!" Mark yelled, a raw edge to his voice now. "It wants you. It wants all of us. We can't let it take us." Casting one last glance at the boy, he began to drag Lily backward, urgency flashing in his eyes. She could see the fear of losing her mirrored in his desperation, a reflection of her own swirling uncertainty. But the boyish cry echoed in her mind, a sound mingling with memories of laughter, love and loss. Tendrils of dread curled up to her throat, squeezing tighter. "Just leave me, please." The boy's agonized plea broke her heart, tearing a fissure through her resolve. In that moment, something inside her snapped. An overwhelming rush of clarity surged, electrifying every nerve. She couldn't abandon him, not when every fiber of her being screamed against it. "Mark, I'm not leaving him." With a renewed fury, she wrenched herself from his grasp, lunging forward, every step weighed down by shadows that whispered bitter secrets of despair and sorrow. She could hear them now, their breath against her skin, painting every fear she had ever known. But she pressed on, knowing she had crossed a line from which there was no return. "Come closer, Lily," the boy beckoned, his voice a haunting melody weaving through the air. "It's okay, they can't hurt us if you believe." Her heart raced uncontrollably, the space around them shifting. The light flickered, battle-worn but refusing to go out. "I believe," she shouted, voice trembling but resolute, reaching out to grab the boyish hand. Just before their fingers could touch, the darkness coiled tighter, a horrifying scream erupted, splintering the air as the shadow creature distorted, revealing rows of jagged teeth and hollow eyes that seemed to gaze straight into her soul. "Your heart belongs to me," it thundered, the familiar voices merging into a cacophony that wrapped itself around her like a noose. At that moment, her breath caught every terror she ever faced flooded into view, amplifying her fear but also igniting a defiance deep within. She felt it swell, transforming despair into raw power. "No, you don't own me." And just like that, the shadows faltered, retracting as her conviction pierced through their thick veil. Light pulsed in rhythm with her heart, creating a space, a thread of fragile hope. "Lily, come on," Mark called again, his voice urgent but clearer amid the chaos now. As she reached once more for the boy, the shadows lunged again, claws razor-sharp closing in fast. "Touch him, Lily. You can save us." His eyes flickered with both fear and hope, urging her on as the darkness writhed in a furious fit. Her fingers brushed against the boy's hand, and in that instant, everything shifted. The light exploded, engulfing them, banishing the shadows for a heartbeat. Was this salvation or damnation? In the next second, a grim pull snapped the world around her. Where had they gone? And what awaited them in the new, fractured reality looming ahead? One thing was certain, they weren't safe yet. Something was waiting, and it knew them all too well. The sudden absence of sound left a suffocating silence in its wake. Lily gasped, her breath forming a cloud of frosty air that hung before her like a specter, dissipating into the chill. She blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of the world that surrounded her now, a stark contrast to the chaos of before. They stood in what appeared to be an endless gray landscape, shrouded in mist. Shadows loomed in the periphery, writhing like angry serpents stirred from slumber. The ground beneath them felt solid yet pulsated as if it were alive, blurring the line between reality and the dreadful unknown. Where are we? Mark's voice wavered, laced with confusion and dread. I don't know. Lily's heart raced again, pounding against her ribs like a trapped animal. She searched desperately for the boy, but he was nowhere in sight, swallowed by the ether of this new realm. The absence of his presence settled like a stone in her stomach. Then came the whispers. They floated through the air, dark and tantalizing, curling around her mind. You shouldn't be here. They hissed, voices layered and twisted. You belong with us forever. No. Lily shouted, shaking her head as if she could physically repel them. Her hands trembled at her sides, but she forced herself to focus. We have to find him, Mark. Find who? Sarah asked, her eyes wide, darting around nervously. What if this is where the shadows wanted us? Stop, Mark barked, frustration mingling with urgency. We'll stay strong together. But the grip of fear was tightening again, squeezing the warmth out of Lily's heart. I can't just stand here. He needs us. A sudden flash of light cut through the gloom, illuminating an outline. She squinted, heart racing. Was it the boy, or something far worse? Lily. A voice rang out, unmistakable. The boy. She ran towards it, her feet pounding against the uneven ground, Mark and Sarah hesitating almost imperceptibly before following. The light sharpened, revealing the boy standing in the center of a swirling vortex, the same eerie luminosity they had seen before but now pulsing as if in rhythm with a tremendous heartbeat. The shadows crept closer to him, hungry whispers echoing, trying to seduce him into their grasp. Don't listen to them, Lily shouted, but the boy's expression was vacant, as if he were caught in a trance. Join us, the shadows lured, curling around his ankles, steadily creeping up his legs. Please, fight it, Mark called, voice strained with desperation. At that moment, the boy's eyes flickered, searching for Lily. She could feel the connection even from a distance. Help me, he pleaded, his voice a chilling mixture of fear and longing for freedom. Lily's heart felt as if it were being ripped apart. I'm here. She dashed forward again, but the shadows erupted into a frenzy, their claws elongating and grasping, intent on dragging both her and the boy into their abyss. As she pushed against them, cold fingers clawing at her sanity, Lily felt a surge of determination. The shadow creature, its face twisted and garish, loomed in front of her, eyes like black pits. You cannot save him, it hissed, breath icy and foul. Embrace the darkness. No. Lily pushed harder, grounding herself with every fiber she had left. Yes, not lost. Yes, with me. The light flickered almost desperately as if feeding off her resolve. But as the shadows roared in anger, she realized she was standing on the brink of a precipice. One wrong move, and everything would crash down into despair. Lily, please. It's too late. Sarah cried, panic rising as the boy's cries echoed louder, growing fainter. No, we won't quit. A part of her still clawed for a way out, but as the shadows surged closer, the slithering whispers formed a chorus, drowning everything else out. With each heartbeat, the stakes escalated. All they needed was a slight misstep, a flicker of doubt, and they could all be lost. But in the depths of terror, Lily felt a sudden sharp clarity. What if the shadows thrived on their fear? What if the light could be wielded as a weapon? With one fierce breath, she steadied herself against the abyss and took a step forward. If this was to end, she would end it on her terms. Together, she screamed, willing her strength into the flickering light. But as the reality bound around them tightened, she felt the ground beneath shift once more, ominously. What awaited them on the other side of that light? The answers gnawed at her, the shadows still lurking, waiting for the next moment of fear. And then, like a whisper curling through the night, the boy's voice broke through again. Will you truly believe? The question hung heavy, a chilling promise of what was to come. Lily's breath caught in her throat as the boy's question echoed, swirling like mist around them. She stared into the vortex, its pulsing light beckoning yet threatening. What did he mean? "Don't you dare go near it," Mark shouted, his voice cutting through the haze. He gripped Lily's arm, holding her back just as the shadows lunged, shrieking like trapped souls. "Leave him alone," Lily screamed, breaking free of Mark's grip. A sudden dread washed over her, heavy and cold. Would they really have to choose between the boy and their own safety? The shadows hissed. "Fear is your enemy." Their voices slithered into her mind, tempting, taunting. "Surrender and you will find peace." "Stop!" Lily cried, clenching her fists as panic flared within her. She couldn't bear the thought of what would happen if they all fell prey to this darkness. The boy's vacant eyes lingered in her mind. "We won't let you win." Maybe she was right. The shadows needed their fear. With every ounce of courage she could muster, she filled her thoughts with hope, imagining the boy free from their grip, running towards her. "Focus on the light," Sarah yelled, her own voice trembling with determination. "Focus, Lily. We have to." The ground shuddered violently, rippling under their feet, as if awakened by their collective will. The boy's expression began to change, clarity flickering across his features. The light around him burned brighter, flaring defiantly against the encroaching shadows. "Stay close," Mark shouted, urging them to group together. They formed a tight circle, their breaths coming out short and sharp. The shadows recoiled for a moment, sensing their unity, but then surged forward, shrieking in fury. Lily's heart raced. "We need to push back." The boy was still trapped but now looked at her with awareness that they might do something to save him. Together, Lily screamed again, this time reaching for Mark and Sarah. They intertwined their hands, fighting the dark force with their own light. The shadows squirmed, but in that moment, the realization hit her. They had power, the kind that thrived in shared strength, not fear. Lily closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of their joined hands, a flickering flame against creeping shadows. "Believe," she shouted, the words spiraling through the ethereal gloom. "We are not afraid." In an explosive burst, the light intensified, engulfing them all. The shadows howled, retreating like mist before the dawn. But just as hope surged within her, the ground convulsed violently. The vortex raged, threatening to swallow them whole. "Lily!" The boy's voice strained against the chaos, desperation crowning his features. "Hold on," she cried, her resolve hardening. She could feel the weight of despair trying to claw at her mind. "We can do this." Inside the blinding light, she felt the energy surge again, stronger than before. But uncertainty lurked. The pressure of doubt wrapped around her like a noose. As the shadows recalibrated, they struck back, new whispers echoing promises of dread. "Join us," a thick baritone voice intertwined with the whispers, the shadows weaving around them as an army. "You will never leave." The boy's eyes widened, fear spilling into them once more. Their grip faltered, and in that moment, a chilling feeling crept into Lily's veins. The realization that they could still lose everything trickled in like poison. "Can you trust?" The boy's voice faded, choking like smoke in the air, enveloped in a shroud of uncertainty. A frigid wave washed over them, now suffocating beneath its weight. The light flickered again, and as it did, a sinister laughter curled through the air, mingling with their own terrified breaths. Lily felt the ground beneath her shift again, teetering on the brink of collapse. Were they too late? "Stay together," Mark shouted, but his voice wavered. The darkness closed in, the shadows in a frenzy, haze thickening around them. But then, amid the smothering fear, Lily felt something shift. It was a tiny tremor of power, gathering in her chest, igniting. "Believe in the light," she bellowed deep within her. Heart, a new clarity emerged. But what if believing wasn't enough? The shadows lunged forward, hungry and wild. And in that blinding moment, the choice awaited her, a choice with consequences that could shatter everything they held dear. Would they fall beneath the weight of darkness, or would they rise? And then the earth groaned again, a rumble that felt ominous, heralding something inescapable. What would become of them in this battle against the endless dark? The world around them twisted, the air thick with dread. The shadows surged, a tide of darkness swallowing the last shards of light. Lily felt the grip of fear tightening around her throat, squeezing away her breath. She could no longer see the boy, his face fading like a forgotten dream, but she could hear the whispers, slithering through the chaos. "Join us," they hissed, weaving through her thoughts, coaxing, manipulating. "Embrace the fear. Surrender. Don't listen to them," Mark shouted, his voice frantic. It was a tether to reality, though even he sounded frail and shaken. The ground heaved again, and this time it wasn't just a tremor. It felt like the earth itself was trying to expel them, desperate to rid itself of their presence. Lily stumbled, catching herself just before crashing to the shifting ground. Mark reached for her, eyes wild with panic. "Lily, we need to move." But where could they run? The shadows wrapped around them, an unyielding cloaked specter. They drew closer, their forms undulating like smoke. "Tell me," the baritone voice bellowed, deeper and closer now. "Do you truly believe?" "Believe," Lily murmured, a chant rising in her throat. Her heart drummed faster, a warning of what lay ahead. They couldn't falter now. She squeezed Mark and Sarah's hands tighter, the warmth of their presence anchoring her against the freezing despair. "Together," she commanded. "Together," echoed back in unison. The light pulsed again, a fraction of hope pushing back against the looming dark. More than just a flicker now, it swelled like a rising tide. But the shadows did not retreat easily. They fought back with a vengeance, laughter echoing like rolling thunder. "Fools," they mocked, "you think unity can shield you? You think hope can save you? Shut up," Sarah screamed, her voice raw, cutting through the taunts as she swung her free arm, an instinctive motion of defiance. But the shadows simply laughed harder. They lunged, and Lily felt the cold fingers clutching at her. Despair clawed at her heart. This wasn't just an illusion. This was real, tangible. Then the vortex erupted. A beam of pure, blinding light shot up from the heart of the darkness, lifting them all inches above the chaos. For a fleeting moment they were suspended, viewing the horror below. The swirling abyss pulsed angrily, roiling like boiling water, the grotesque faces of the shadows distorted but unmistakable. Each visage was one of pure terror, beckoning for their surrender, preying on their frailty. "Do you see?" The boy's voice emerged again, threading through the chaos, a lifeline. "Fear is a choice. Then we choose," Lily shouted, every ounce of strength pouring into her conviction. "We choose to fight." With every heartbeat, they drew closer to the boy's fading form. But the shadows spiraled upward, tendrils of darkness darting toward them, dark wings slicing through the light. "Do you really think you can escape?" The shadows taunted, relentless. "You are ours forever." "Focus," Mark bellowed, but panic clung thick in the air. "We've got to break through." The energy shifted. The light flickered as the darkness surged forward, a tidal wave crashing against their fragile barrier. Hope was a fragile ember, caught in the unbearable weight of despair. For a moment, an overwhelming wave of doubt washed over Lily. She felt her resolve slip, the shadows whispering their seductive lies. What if this is all a trick? They cooed, seducing her mind with venomous sweet words. What if you're meant to join us? Wouldn't it be easier? No, she screamed back, rallying against the tide. I will not give in. But the question hung in the air, caustic and heavy. What lay on the other side if they failed? Lily? Mark breathed, his voice cracking. We can't. But before he could finish, an explosion of darkness collided with their light. Everything shattered into a million pieces, then fell silent, as they were consumed by an overwhelming void. And as the shadows whispered, reflecting each haunting fear, the chilling reality set in. The battle wasn't over. What would happen now that the light was lost, and the darkness had taken hold? As the last flicker of light faded, a chilling realization struck deep within Lily's core. A new nightmare had just begun. Lily's vision swirled with shadowy fragments, memories intertwined with nightmarish flashes of darkness closing in. The echo of the boy's voice lingered in her mind, resonating through her heart. urging her to hold on. Everything trembled as if reality itself strained against the weight of despair. A rush of cold air filled her lungs, electrifying her with dread. "Where are we?" Mark's voice trembled, his expression a mixture of fear and disbelief. The darkness enveloped them, thick and suffocating. Shadows writhed just beyond their reach, taunting and seething, demanding surrender. "We can't give up," Lily shouted, fighting against the gripping fear that tried to tether her down. She felt her heartbeat echo in the relentless silence, every pulse reminding her of the urgency defining their existence. "Why won't it let us go?" Sarah's voice cracked. Fear lit her features as she flinched, the shadows dancing around them, seeking out their weaknesses. "I don't know," Lily snapped, desperation clawing at her throat. "But we're not done yet." In that moment, Lily grasped Mark and Sarah's hands. Clinging together, they formed a fragile circle. They weren't just fighting for themselves now. They were fighting for the boy, for Mrs. Croft, for everyone who had vanished into the clutches of the darkness. It needed to end. Breath deepened, a tide of hope blossoming within her. "We can't let them take us. We'll fight." The shadows recoiled slightly, sensing their determination. But the curse of doubt lingered, swirling ominously. "Fear is your enemy. Embrace it," they hissed, scrambling to enter their minds, trying to break their bond. "Believe in the light," Mark yelled, squeezing Lily's hand tighter, grounding them against the tide. "We are stronger together." Lily closed her eyes, focusing on every moment of joy, every smile, and every connection that filled her heart. She envisioned the boy, his eyes bright with hope rather than fear. "Yes, counting on us," she shouted. Suddenly, a glowing luminescence ignited from the center of their grasp, bursting forth like a sunrise chasing away the night. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the blinding radiance. The boy's shadow flickered out once more, visible but fragile in the haze. "Help!" he cried again, his voice tearing through the cacophony like a beacon. "You have to believe." "I believe," Lily shouted, her resolve surging fiercely. Together in an explosive rush, the darkness surged once more. But this time, they were ready. The light expanded with every heartbeat, illuminating the abyss, forcing the creeping shadows to retreat. Light and dark collided, echoing in a cacophony of shrieks and roars. Holding onto each other, they pushed forward, gaining ground. The images of lost children and Mrs. Croft flooded their minds, reinforcing their charge. "Not today. You won't take anyone else," they yelled in unison, their voices vibrant and fierce, shattering the silence. The shadows writhed violently, twisting, contorting under the strain of hope and defiance. "You cannot win," they screeched, falling back as they began to dissolve. "Watch us," Lily shouted, fueling the warmth pouring out from them. The boy's figure grew clearer, hope radiating from his essence. He matched their fight, basking in the light, growing stronger with every rallying heartbeat. A moment of realization swept over Lily. This was not merely a battle against darkness. It was a reclamation of everything stolen from them. With that surge of clarity came an overwhelming energy, bolstering their conviction and igniting a glowing masterpiece of light that cut through the shadows. With one last resounding cry, they surged forward, hand in hand. The blinding light roared into existence, uniting their strength, fueling the boy with warmth, illuminating the hidden corners where the shadows lingered. The shrieks turned to howls, and the darkness began to crumble before them, as if the very fabric of despair was being ripped apart. "No, you belong to us," echoed through the air, trembling like a dying gasp of a once powerful entity. But they had something darkness could never comprehend: hope, love, and courage. As the shadows melted away completely, brilliant streams of light enveloped them, lifting and pulling them toward the boy, who reached out with trembling hands. "Thank you," he beamed, joy brimming in his eyes. And just like that, the basement was gone. They stood in Maplewood. It was quiet now, the Christmas lights twinkling peacefully against a backdrop of stars. The air tasted sweet, the chilling dread lifted, replaced by warmth and togetherness. "Is it over?" Sarah breathed, eyes shimmering with a mixture of relief and lingering uncertainty. "I think so," Lily replied, her heart swelling. "We faced it together. We fought the dark." Peace settled around them, but the haunting echoes of their fight remained. They turned together, unwilling to ignore the lessons learned. "Let us find a way to keep these stories from repeating," Mark suggested, determination lacing his voice. "We can't let fear thrive in neglect." "Well then, we'll make it our mission," Lily agreed, the thrill of purpose igniting anew. "We'll bring back the lost stories and light the path for others." Together, they stood as a united front, warriors against the dark, knowing that the best way to honor those lost was to shine a light into every dark corner they encountered. And at that moment, under the twinkling stars of a still Christmas night, they promised to never let fear win again. You need to subscribe now to follow our channel and never miss out on more thrilling tales and exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions. Let us shine together.